Hello and welcome back. For those of you who are returning for session 3, for those of you who are new to this series, welcome to Thriving Together from Silos to Synergy in Collaborative Partnerships. Friendly reminder, I'm Janelle Mercado. I'm the project coordinator for SIP out of El Dorado County Office of Education. And on behalf of our team, we are so excited you all are here today. We're seeing some familiar names and faces in the chat. So welcome. And we want to thank all of you. The Supporting Inclusive Practices Project is a technical assistance project. We're funded by the California Department of Education out of Riverside and El Dorado County Offices of Education. We aim to dismantle ableist systems to ensure that all students and families, especially those from traditionally marginalized groups, are seen, heard, centered, and feel that they belong. As always, we thank the California Department of Education and our respective county offices for supporting the work that we do. You can access all of our resources on our website at sipinclusion.org, which our teammates are putting in the chat now, or you can follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at SIP Inclusion or at Supporting Inclusive Practices. Another friendly reminder, all of our session materials, including a certificate of completion, can be found on the resource Padlet, which also our team members are dropping in the chat right now. Today's presentation is being recorded and will also be posted to the resource Padlet following the webinar. You'll want to give us a little bit of time for this because we're working really hard to make sure our closed captioning is as accessible as possible, which requires a little bit of time. And so just as soon as we can get it posted on the Padlet, we will. Also, eventually, all of the recordings will be added to our website, so you can find them there also. We also have a sign language interpreter that is joining us today. Hello, Mary Herman. Thank you so much for being here. And closed captioning has been enabled, so please access it as needed. Our team is here to support you. We will host a Q&A with our presenters at the end of this session. So please put any of your questions in the chat if you have them. And today we have Juliet Anyanwu and Heather Snipes, our SIP program specialist, to begin our session by unpacking a model of understanding and supporting collaborative partnerships. Following this presentation, we're going to give you some directions on how to access various breakout Zoom sessions that are divided in groups by preschool, elementary, middle school, and high school. So you'll get a chance to choose your own path or your own journey. But again, thank you for being here, and I'm going to pass it along to Juliet and Heather to introduce themselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Janelle. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for session 3, where we're going to talk through educator partnerships and collaboration and inclusive settings. My name is Juliet Nyanwu, and I'm a program support specialist out of El Dorado County Office of Education. I'm physically located in Valencia, California, and I come to you with over a decade of experience, either in different partnerships in the classroom or coaching partnerships or coaching administrators to support partnerships at their school sites. This is a topic that's near and dear to me. I firmly believe that we need to pour into our teachers in collaborative partnerships so they can pour into our students. And so I'm going to have my co-facilitator introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Heather Snipes. I'm a program support specialist from El Dorado County Office of Education. I'm physically located in Eureka up here in Humboldt County. My background is in early childhood education. And so I come with that early childhood lens. And as many of you know, early childhood is really a naturally collaborative environment. A lot of folks will say it feels like being a part of a family, and sometimes it feels like co-parenting. And so my lens is a little bit different when it comes to collaborative partnerships. I'm thankful to learn from teammates like Juliet with that deep expertise, and happy to be here with you all to share the information about collaborative partnerships. So the first thing that we always want to do is make sure you have the resources that you need, which means that they are here on the screen in front of you and for you. And we are also dropping that link in the Padlet or in the chat right now. Next, we want to ground in how we're feeling about our own journey in collaborative partnerships. So we're going to get started by showing you all these images on the screen and seeing maybe where do you feel like you're represented in the continuum of collaborative partnerships, because we know there's so many different experiences happening. So if you can all just take a look at what's up there. I already see the numbers coming in. We've got a 2, we've got a 4.
We got a couple of 7s coming in, 6s, a few 2s.
I love that people are saying 4s. That means that your collaborative partnership is thriving.
And hopefully you're able to walk away with some additional tips and tricks and strategies that you can utilize to elevate your current partnership.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely a continuum, and it can go either way, right? Sometimes you feel like you're number 1, and sometimes you might feel like a number 7 and somewhere else along the way. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take just a minute to reflect on where we've been before we get into the meat of what we're going to be talking about in our short time together in this session. And just say we've been to inclusive leadership and school site teams. We started out with that, really grounding in that shared leadership and collaborative partnerships by talking about leadership teams. And then talking about a shared vision, right? Making sure that you're grounding with a shared vision, that's where you're really starting out. Then looking more at those policies that you're putting in place, the structures that you're putting in place, by talking about master scheduling and what that looks like and how that can support collaborative partnerships. Today, we're really going to dive into inclusive instructional models and collaboration. You're going to get to hear from teaching teams who are on the ground doing the work and somewhere along that continuum of collaborative partnerships. And then next week, we'll wrap things up with talking about inclusive instructional practices, really what it looks like in practice and on the ground.
Okay, so let's dive into inclusive instructional models and then the collaborative partnership process. And so within the different partnerships that I've been in, this is definitely a quote that I hold near and dear to me. It goes with our series of Thriving Together. We used to talk about better together, but really when we're talking about partnership, we're really in it thriving together. And so I love this African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. So within my collaborative partnerships, definitely 2 heads were better than 1. We eventually got to that place where we saw that 2 heads were better than 1. And we definitely not only went far as our partnership was concerned, but we really saw our students grow tremendously within our classroom environment. And so this is a visual that should be familiar to you if you attended our session last week. We highlighted the services and supports in general education. And so we highlighted this new visual that we just created around inclusive instructional models. And so I'm going to walk you through the 4 that are highlighted in this visual. And so we have at the top left-hand corner, the informal teaching within special education. And so a lot of my partnerships started here. It was very much initiated at the teacher level. I can remember names, Miss Sony, Miss Brown, all the teachers Miss Tavares. I was Miss A, I've had a Miss B, I've had a Miss C, I've had so many different partnerships. But a lot of them started really with the relationship. So for example, Ms. Brown, we were just friends who happened to work at the same school site. And so, we started informally teaming because we had that relationship prior to even launching into that partnership. We carved out time whenever we could. We had lunch together and we did a little bit of informal planning. She consulted with me. I collaborated with her around strategies and methods to support students in her classroom, whether they had an IEP or not. And then we got a little formal with it. We wanted to make things a little official. And so we brought in our administrator. And so we told them all this great work that was happening. And so we started to have some meeting times and consultation times that were like scheduled for us. We were going to the same professional development. Our principal saw value in the work that we were doing. And so instead of the gen ed teacher going to a certain type of professional development and me as a special educator going to another type, we went together and got the same information in order to fill our cups and get better at this work that we're doing. We had defined roles and responsibilities. And then we did a little bit of push-in where I would come in and provide that specialized academic instruction to students that were on my caseload. We did, again, some ongoing consultation and collaboration, both formal and informal. And then we did some minimal co-planning. Not a lot was happening at that point. We saved the co-planning for when we elevated and got to co-teaching a little bit. We were definitely, by the time we started co-teaching, we were more interdependent. We knew our strengths. Ms. Brown, Ms. Sony, Ms. Taveras, all my co-teachers had their strengths and they knew what mine's were. And so we definitely utilized them in the classroom. There was co-planning happening. There was co-instructing. We were co-assessing together. We were really coordinated and more in sync in the work that we were doing in order to create transformational classrooms for our students. And so if you're interested in learning more about co-teaching, we have a ton of resources. You can scan the QR code in front of you. We have resources on our website from previous events that we've held, Padlets. So you name it, it's on this website. It's on our website, or you can access it through the QR code. And so we wanted to highlight the instructional, inclusive instructional models that could happen or could happen in the gen ed setting. And so this framework is something, the brand new thing that we're going to talk through today. And so this framework, the collaborative partnership process, really has the ability to support partnerships within the inclusive instructional models that I just shared. And so I wish I had this visual and this framework when I was in the classroom and I was trying to figure out what to do within my collaborative partnership. And so we're going to dive deeper into what this looks like. And so as you see in front of you, there are 5 stages within the collaborative partnership process. If you're interested in finding out more about this really amazing tool and framework that we created, you can scan the QR code, or we're going to drop the link in the chat that takes you directly to the resource. And so I just want to give a quick overview since this is a new tool. So the collaborative process, partnership process framework what is adapted from Tuckman's model of small group development. And so this model really is designed to guide partnership through the stages of group development. And so we're going to highlight different strategies to establish clear goals. Goals are something that's so important. You want to make sure that when you're in a partnership, you should have common agreed upon goals. And so this framework really allows you to establish those clear goals at the onset, and then also allow you to foster trust. Trust is something that is so important in collaborative partnerships. Conflicts will come up. You put 2 people in the classroom, you can't just say, go ahead and figure it out. There's so many different details and just little things that matter and things that come up. And so there will be conflict when 2 people are trying to come together and figure things out for the students in the classroom. So there will be conflicts that come up, and this tool helps you to resolve them. It also helps to enhance the collaboration between 2 individuals, but then it also allows you to reflect on some of the accomplishments that we have experienced within our time together. And so there's research to back up this framework that we're sharing with you. Tuckman's stage of small group development, it's definitely a widely recognized framework within not only the field of education, but in other fields as well too. And it really describes a predictable phase that small groups will experience. The thing I want to highlight is that this is predictable. We are going to go through these 5 stages within a small group or collaborative partnership. And so you can think of the stages in sequence. We have the forming, the storming, the norming, and performing. And so when this when this framework first was released, it only had 4 stages. And then later on, they added on the adjourning stage. And I actually really appreciate that, because when a partnership comes to an end, there are some things that we need to consider in order to close it up. And so a few things, it's just like reflecting on the partnership. What are some things that went really well? How can we adjust for the next year? And so that part, the way you start a relationship is just as important as the way you end it. And so I'm so glad they added that 5th stage, journey, and we're going to walk you through what that entails internally and what that entails for leaders to support teachers through these 5 stages. And so I'm going to hand it off to my co-facilitator to take you through the 5 stages.
Thank you so much, Juliet. Okay, so like Juliet said, there are 5 stages within this process. And the first one that we see here is forming. The definition of forming is that it's our first stage in the process, and it's a time for getting to know each other, getting acquainted, becoming organized, and creating clear goals and expectations. That's really where you start out together, right? What's needed internally, and what that means is what's needed within the collaborative partnership: a common vision. We need to have a common vision so we know what we're doing and where we're headed. Assignment of responsibilities. And like Juliet had mentioned before, those responsibilities really are based on the strengths that each team member brings into that collaborative partnership. And then agreed upon norms and expectations. And those could be things too that include non-negotiables. So that you want to have those types of conversations at the very beginning while you're still forming, so that you can move forward with a clear understanding of where each of you are coming from in that collaborative partnership. Some tips for leaders include staying actively involved. You want to make sure that you are actively involved in collaborative partnerships and making sure that they're staying on track, right? Providing structure, whether that's your master scheduling, whether it's informal, protecting your collaborative partnership members' time, whatever that looks like, making sure that you're providing that structure for them to be successful. Designating that protected time and space for new partners to get acquainted. And that means too, the acquainted part, you really want to focus on relationship building and being able to focus on those academic goals that you're going to be developing together. And then establishing clear lines of communication and making sure those clear lines stay open or are adjusted based on the changing needs of the team. So that's forming. Stage number 2 is storming. And we all know that after the honeymoon phase is over, that might feel a little bit stormy. And that's where we are in the second stage. It's a time for solidifying goals, but conflicts might arise, and they might need to be resolved through negotiations, right? And so once the honeymoon phase is over, what does the collaborative partnership team need to be able to move forward and keep working together? Effective listening strategies. Relationship building, still having that foundational focus on maintaining and nurturing the relationship that you've started to build, and then having a clear feedback process where you're able to open up to each other, to trust each other, to have those harder conversations and say, this is what's working, this is what's not working, and these are the ways that we can work together to find a resolution that works for us, and more importantly, a way that works for our students. How can leaders support here? Provide that structure and support for conflicts that might arise. So that's where that protected space and time is really important. When these conflicts come up, our collaborative partners need to have that space and time to be able to work through the challenges that happen in new partnerships. Again, protecting the collaboration time. I don't think we could say it enough. Collaboration is key to partnerships and key to co-teaching. And so making sure it's protected is very important. And then sometimes you might need to jump in and facilitate those decision-making processes. So being that middleman to help work through the harder conversations or where your collaborative partnership team might get stuck. The third stage in this process is norming. It's a time where mutual trust is established. It's when cooperation is evident, and new stable roles are really established. What's needed internally to nurture in this stage: open communication, shared problem solving, That's where you make sure that each member of the team is really having an active part of the problem solving process, and they're able to openly give their input and be a part of that decision making process, and an equal part as much as possible. And that's where that balance of roles and responsibilities comes. Knowing each other's strengths and areas where you're going to need extra support will help with that balance. Leaders can support in this stage by giving ongoing and targeted feedback. So making sure you have those feedback cycles in place, whether that means you go into the setting and you observe and you provide that targeted feedback on a certain area that the team is working on, or if it looks a little more informal, making sure that you have that in place. Continue to provide space for relationship building. That's something you'll notice throughout every stage here. Relationship building remains to be an important piece of the entire process. And then ensure that there's that balance of roles and responsibilities that's needed internally and from leadership, because leaders sometimes can see things from the outside and say, it looks like it might actually be imbalanced, even if the team is feeling like things are balanced. So being able to have that outside eye on what's really going on is really important here.
And then one thing I just want to highlight before we move on to the next stage is that for the norming stage, this might take a little while. And it's okay to sit in this stage a little bit, because when you're bringing two individuals that might be very different as far as background, expertise, it might take a minute for them to norm. And that is perfectly fine that we sit in a couple of these stages for a little bit longer than other stages. So know that these stages aren't time bound. It's really relationally dependent how quickly or slowly a partnership moves through these 5 stages.
Yes. Our fourth stage is performing. That's when you're really firing on all cylinders. You're like, we've got it. We have some clear things that we agreed on. We know our strengths. We know our areas where we're going to support each other. Our leadership is on board with this. They've deepened knowledge and skills and a shared responsibility and feeling of pride in the work that you're doing and your partnership. What's needed within the team here is that maintained cohesion and collaboration, the healthy give and take, clarity on goals. So also that reflection process of going back and saying, we established these goals at the very beginning when we were forming. Are they still clear? Do they need to be adjusted? And really having that continuous improvement process throughout the all 5 stages. And then having a process to measure your effectiveness. Now that you've worked through and you are in an established partnership and you really have your practices established, how are you going to measure whether what you're doing really is effective for your students? Making sure that you have that in place. And then what leaders can do at this stage is to demonstrate shared leadership through active collaboration. You've got an established team, you trust that they know what they're doing and that the work that they're doing is meaningful and high level. And so making sure that leaders are bringing them in as partners in the collaboration, and allowing them to make those higher level decisions. Observing, inquiring, and ensuring teams have what they need in order to feel successful. And again, going back to that protected collaboration time that needs to be ongoing. And then share new informations and opportunities for growth, right? So leadership oftentimes receives new information before others do. Share your wealth, share the information. Here's something new I learned that will fit perfectly within your collaborative partnership. Now, stage 5 is called adjourning, which makes you think that there's an end, right? But the end could really mean the end of the school year, or it could mean that your collaborative partnership is coming to an end for whatever reason. We know that there's turnover and there are lots of different factors that play into collaborative partnerships. So it may not be that your partnership is disbanding. It may be that you're reaching the end of the year. Whatever that means, whatever adjourning means for your partnership, it really is a transition time where you're able to have some reflection and you're ready to prepare for the future, whatever that means. So internally, being able to recognize your accomplishments, this should be something that you do all the way along the way. We want to celebrate all those little wins. But then at the very end of your school year or at the end of your partnership time, taking a look back and saying, wow, we really accomplished a lot this year together. Using that time to tie up loose ends, whether that means connecting with future teachers who are going to be taking some of the students that you share to be able to give them information, or just tying up your loose ends as a teaching team. And then time to reflect and prepare for the future. And now, how can leaders support? Allow time for teams to have that reflection and make those changes to your process if necessary. And then also listen to teams' needs during this time of transition. If you're getting a new team teacher, you might need that extra time to really be able to make the changes and get ready for them. So now I'm going to hand it over to Megan to share a little bit about what's next. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much, Heather. Can we give some love to Heather and Juliet in the chat? They've worked really hard to bring this framework to life for our team. As someone who is a former co-teacher, I really wish I would have had some of these tools because I did not know that I shouldn't have conflict with my or how to navigate that conflict. And also, I think knowing that like these are predictable natural stages is so helpful. So thank you for this tool. And I'm really excited for you all to get to go to breakout rooms in a few minutes to hear those experiences from other educators in the classrooms right now. But before I give you the Zoom links, we wanted to give you a little bit of information about our final session, which is next week at the same time. And we're really thrilled to be able to highlight our final featured presenter for this event, who is Dr. Jamela Coase. Dr. Jamela Coase is a dear friend, and I'm so excited for you all to meet her next week on Zoom. She is an award-winning educator, leader, and advocate for inclusive education. And she's going to be talking about how do we bring all these pieces together into high leverage instructional strategies in the classroom to get the outcomes we really want for our students. Like, how do we make sure that adding more adults to the classroom has more impact and more benefits for our students along with our staff. This is a must-watch series. I feel like it's like finally like opening up our present of this entire workshop series. So we're really excited to have Dr. Jamela Coase join us next week. And now for the Choose Your Own Adventure time of this webinar series, we have the same districts that you heard from last week. Now their educators are actually joining us in breakout rooms. So you'll get to hear from classroom teachers, education specialists, and more in these various breakout Zooms. So I'm going to put these Zooms in the chat here in just a minute. You can also find them on your home-based document, which was in the chat earlier, and also on the Padlet. These Zoom rooms are now open, so you are welcome to join them, and we invite you to leave the webinar and join the room of your choice. If you have any questions, I will be here in the webinar with some of my teammates, and we're happy to answer those questions for you as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and we cannot wait to hear what you learn in your breakout Zoom rooms. Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.